Hey everybody, welcome to the latest episode of the Rock and Roll Experience with Mike Brunn. This is an episode that I'm really super excited about, and I hope you guys really enjoy it as much as I enjoyed putting it together. Most of you guys already know I'm a huge KISS fan. I started my KISS fandom back in 1976 when I was a little kid. By the mid-80s, I was a huge KISS fan, I was in my teenage years, and my musical idol was Eric Carr. Everything about him just seemed so cool to me. He seemed like one of the guys, and it was somebody I always looked up to. When he unfortunately passed away in 1991, it had a big impact on me. I still think about Eric all the time. Well, right now his 70th birthday, or what would have been his 70th birthday, is coming up, and I really thought that this would be a great opportunity to put together a little tribute, a little remembrance of Eric, and think about and talk about all the different things and the different ways that Eric impacted us. So I invited a few different people on my show to share their stories with me. The first person you guys will certainly recognize, radio and TV personality Eddie Trunk. Eddie, I want to say thank you for joining me. Eddie's able to share stories about meeting Eric as a fan first, as well as working with Eric in the industry during the 80s. I'll also have on the episode here author Greg Prato. Greg has written a number of books, including The Eric Carr Story, and most recently, the KISS book, Take It Off, KISS Unmasked. Greg will be able to share some of his insights of talking with different people that knew Eric as well. Also on the show with me will be my good buddy, Vincent LaRussa. He's been a KISS fan for over 40 years and is a drummer, and he could shed a little bit of insights to some of the great drum patterns and some of the great things that Eric did on the drums. He also has an EP coming out soon that'll feature Jeremy Asbrack and Matt Starr, so you're going to want to check that out as well. Also, and last, I will have with me on the show, Michael Naimoli. Mike has been to over 260 KISS concerts in his life, and he met Eric a number of times in the 80s, and it's great to hear some of his firsthand accounts of being a fan and meeting Eric, so I think you guys are going to really enjoy hearing his stories as well. But before we get into my conversations with those guys, why don't we just take a little listen here, a couple comments that were sent in to me from a few people who were very near and dear to Eric and who loved Eric very much and worked and knew him very well during the 80s. Take a listen.
Hey Mike, it's Bruce Kulick here, and I'm on your show today because you asked me to say something about Eric Carr. First of all, a very happy birthday to my dear friend Eric, who would be 70. It's really remarkable that it's been all these years since his passing. But I know that his spirit lives on with the KISS fans and in my heart, and including my wife, Lisa's. You know, Eric made such a great impact on the KISS fans and the KISS world, and obviously losing him was very tragic, especially performing and being pretty close to him in the band. Him and I usually hung out quite a bit. But I will tell you that birthdays, since I want to keep this a very up message, birthdays meant a lot to him. And I particularly remember one birthday where Carrie was out, Carrie Stevens, and she was out on the road somewhere, and we were performing somewhere during his birthday. So there was a bit of a party in his room with a big cake, and I remember Gene being there. I'm literally there like in a robe or something with my hair up. It was really silly. I've recently remembered seeing some stuff about it that really brought back wonderful memories of what a goofy guy he was, how funny he was. Everything was kind of fun. Even though we all knew that there was a little bit of a sadness with Eric, that he was always trying to, find his place in KISS in a bigger way, which is hard to do when you're the drummer of the band. It's kind of the Ringo complex, I guess. But really, his contributions were tremendous, and certainly when it came to having a lot of fun on the road and doing silly things like that famous video that's out there where he's playing my guitar and singing Beatles songs and other things. He was always very creative and a hell of a lot of fun, and we all miss and love him. So happy birthday to Eric up there at 70, and he'll live on forever, and I'm very proud of my relationship and the work that I did with him. Happy birthday, Eric Carr.
Happy birthday, Eric. 70. How did time go by? 70 years old. The last birthday I spent with Eric, he turned 41. We were at the Rainbow with Bruce Kulick and his then wife, Christina. We had no idea it would be his last. Of course, no one plans for such a thing. I dress up for his birthday every year. I pretend we're going somewhere. Call me psycho. I call it soulmates. Thank you. Thank you for loving Eric, and thank you for embracing me. As we share in celebrating Eric's 70th birthday, let's all be happy, be grateful for our lives, and give each other one big quarantine hug. Much love. Kisses, of course.
I want to say thank you so much to Bruce Kulick and Carrie Stevens for sending me in those exclusive videos and giving some thoughts about the late, great Eric Carr. I know that Eric was very near and dear to both of you guys, and of course, you both meant an awful lot to Eric as well. I know the KISS fans really appreciate hearing your thoughts during this great celebration of Eric's life and his upcoming 70th birthday. So once again, thank you both very much. Now, why don't we jump in with my conversation with Eddie, Greg, Vincent, and Michael as we celebrate the life of Eric Carr. Awesome. So why don't we just start at the beginning, right? So when do you remember finding out that Peter Criss was leaving KISS and they were going to be getting a new drummer, which ultimately ended up to be Eric Carr?
Yeah. I found out that Peter Criss left KISS through the same way that a lot of fans probably did, by 16 magazine.
Yep.
So that was when I found out that Peter Criss had left, which back then, I mean, things were very slow with news getting to people. So what's funny, by that point, KISS had already played a show with Eric Carr. They'd already played. So they played in the city. And yeah, so that was how I found out that Peter Criss had left. And I don't know if it was in that, it was probably not in that issue that they mentioned that Eric Carr was the new drummer. That was probably its own issue, I would imagine. But yeah, it was through 16 magazine. Like 16 magazine at that point was our Kerrang or hit parader.
Exactly.
You know, I remember as a kid really being concerned because it was the first lineup change in the band, and it was pretty catastrophic. I mean, even though at that time, you know, people have a hard time understanding this who aren't my age and didn't live then, but at that time with KISS. But KISS was at rock bottom in their career in America. But they still had their very hardcore fan base that was there, a segment of them like me. So I was like all in and trying to figure out what was really going on. And then,
because Peter Criss was, you know, my first musical idol, I was a bit upset that he was leaving the group. He was the only solo album I had. I was only allowed one. There was only one KISS doll I was allowed to have. It was Peter Criss. So obviously I had a certain affinity towards Peter. And I was one Halloween, one KISS member, full paint, makeup, you know, not those plastic masks. It was Peter Criss. But yeah, so yeah, it was kind of like I just felt like, you know, they're gonna destroy this thing that they have. You know, that these are the four characters. Like, how could you bring in, this is their identity? But you know, I soon, you know, took a liking to it, and a lot of it was because of Eric. You know, his personality, his drumming, and he was a cool character. I mean, the bottom line, he looked cool. You know, so I think they did a wonderful job in trying to create, you know, a new identity, and imagine that pressure. You know?
Oh yeah.
But I did go to Eric Carr's first show. I was at the Palladium, which was his first show.
And what do you remember about that show? What do you remember about?
What do I remember about it?
Yeah, that must have been crazy.
Well, it was the third time I ever saw KISS. And probably my third overall ever concert, because my first two concerts were KISS, 77, 79. So I was a little bit older, and I remember just being astounded that this band was playing a theater. You know, a year earlier, I saw them playing 2 nights at the Garden. A couple years before that, I saw them playing 3 nights at the Garden. And now they're playing a venue that's an old movie theater, maybe holds 3,000 people at most. So it was really sort of shocking, and as much as it was going to be cool to see him in a small environment, the other side of me was kind of like a little like upset, because it was just proof that my band really was falling apart at that time. So it was just very mixed emotions, I would say, going into that whole thing.
And what do you remember, if anything, about Eric's performance that night? Does anything stand out to you?
Well, I mean, I remember the buzz out front going in. There was a lot of skepticism. There was, but the fans that went to that show, if you were still going to see KISS at that time, like you were hardcore. So you were going to kind of like roll with whatever it was and try to be open-minded and supportive to a new guy coming in. Mm-hmm. And there was definitely a buzz on the streets. You know, there was a thing about going to shows in New York City back then. There was just a vibe on the street, everything about it, like from people selling the bootleg T-shirts to, you know, all this stuff that went on, the food, the smell of the food carts. I mean, it's all very vivid to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I remember waiting in line out front of the Palladium to get in, and it was a hot ticket. Mm-hmm. It definitely was a hot ticket because it was obviously a very small place. It turned out being the only American show they played that year for that record. Mm-hmm. So it was, you know, there was a buzz, even though it was sort of like everyone was sort of a little reserved about the fact that, like, wow, how are we seeing them in such a small place?
Right.
But it was still cool to see them in a place like that. And then, you know, everyone sort of was like, we don't know. Nobody knows about the new guy. And I remember the feeling when everyone first saw the drum kit. Mm-hmm. If I'm not mistaken, there was sort of a big reveal of the kit. I don't think there was a curtain across the front of the stage, but I think there was a curtain over the kit.
Okay.
And before they played, they pulled the curtain off the kit. And then the first thing that hit everybody was, whoa, double bass.
Sure.
You know,
Right.
There's this giant kit and double bass. Mm-hmm. So it was a completely like, okay, we're in for a different sort of approach here. Mm-hmm. And I got to tell you, I mean, I don't know anybody that walked out of that show not being all in on Eric Carr. Mm-hmm. And I mean that with all respect to Peter, who I still love to this day. And Peter is Peter. The original four will never be touched.
Absolutely.
But this was KISS sort of being supercharged in some way, being a little just the energy he brought. Just an immediately, even though at that point people really didn't hear him talk or didn't know much about him, there was just still a quality about him that was just like, you could tell it was like, wow, how did I get this gig? Like, how am I in this? Mm-hmm. And it immediately resonated with fans. I mean, I don't recall a person in my group or anyone that I heard on the street that walked out of there in any way not being all in on Eric Carr after that first performance.
So Eddie's first time seeing Eric perform live was at the Palladium. What was the first time you saw Eric Carr perform live in concert?
Lick It Up in March of '84 at Radio City Music Hall, night number 2.
Oh, yeah. That was my second KISS show, so I was at that show as well.
I remember it was very loud.
Uh-huh. Yep.
Okay? And I remember, you know, we were sitting upstairs.
Okay.
And I remember the crowd being really, really into it. Mm-hmm. And I remember them playing really well. They did a number of songs that I had never thought I'd see live, you know.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
I believe they did Gimme More.
Yes, they
night.
did. Yep, they did.
Yeah, it was really really cool, and of course the tank with the turret.
Absolutely.
And the smoke.
Absolutely.
Off, you know.
Absolutely.
The Crazy Nights tour in January '88 at Nassau Coliseum.
Yep. So what did you think of him with the live performances? And whenever he did his drum solos, he had all the drum pads all over the place. Right. What were your thoughts?
No, I mean, to this day, I think the best thing about 80s KISS is Eric Carr and also Bruce Kulick. I think they were both great players. They were not, I think their talents were not really used fully with KISS. I think they should have been used much more because whenever Bruce or Eric contributed a song with songwriting, that to me were always the more interesting songs in that era, especially Eric Carr. I mean, I think that All Hell's Breaking Loose was a great song. Yep. I think that No, No, No is a great song. You know, there's a lot of songs that he had a hand in writing that I think to this day are probably the most interesting 80s era KISS songs. So,
absolutely. Yeah,
I mean, I remember being pretty impressed with, you know, I mean, like now, of course, I go back and watch some of those concerts, and it's kind of hard to take with Paul's stage raps and the clothing and everything.
Of course.
But I mean, at that point, there wasn't anything funny or weird about it. That was pretty much, you know, if you switched on MTV, you saw Poison and Bon Jovi and Motley Crue, and they were acting the same way as KISS.
Exactly, and KISS just fit right in with the times during that time. Absolutely. Now, some of you guys have actually met Eric Carr in person. What do you remember about the first time that you met Eric?
Sam Goody.
Yes.
Across the street from Radio City, they did an in-store for the Lick It Up album. So it was like a nice transition from just meeting them for the very first time to seeing them live for the very first time.
Right. So what do you remember about that meeting at Sam Goody? Right. I wasn't there. I would have loved to be there. What do you remember about it?
I remember cutting school. It was a weekday, and a friend and I took the train in the A train from Queens into Manhattan, which was risky in 1984.
Sure.
I remember it being cold. I remember the line was around the corner. It was huge, and we got on the line, and just the whole vibe and the excitement, sort of like a Detroit '96,
Sure.
outside the venue, people excited. They're finally going to get close to these superheroes, people that you've idolized your whole life. All of a sudden, you're going to see them in person,
right?
And the anticipation of getting closer and closer to the door, and then finally seeing in the glass and them standing there.
Yep.
And it was exciting for a 16-year-old kid.
Sure.
Fan,
Absolutely.
It was really exciting. But when we finally did get in, it was rather quick.
Right. Of course, as these things are.
Hang out with them like they are today. These meetings,
Right.
But it was definitely memorable for me.
Absolutely.
There's a photo in my first book, I believe, of that meeting, but I didn't make it to the Creatures tour because I had an appendix attack, and you can go back to my interview with Mike archived if you want to hear that whole story again. But I ended up going to Massachusetts on the Lick It Up tour the next year, or whenever that was, 2 years, whatever it was, later, a year. And my mom, I found out, had written a letter, and they got me tickets because I missed the Creature show, and I went there, and it was the most surreal thing because it was at the Centrum in Worcester, Massachusetts, and I went with some friends, and we got a hotel right next to where the arena was, and we were in the hotel, and we were doing our sort of tailgating in a room, not in out of a car, but in a hotel room. And we were having some beers, and we were getting revved up for the show. And we had a boom box, and we were cranking, KISS tunes and just getting revved up for the concert. And all we had to do was walk out of the hotel lobby, and the arena was right there. And we had our door open to the hotel just because we figured maybe some other KISS fans will be walking by going to the show. They'll hear us playing the songs. We wanted to have a party, invite some people in. And as we're there hanging out, we turn and look at the open door, and standing there going, "Hey, turn down all that noise. I'm trying to get some sleep," was Eric Carr. It's completely like the most crazy, surreal thing ever. And we were like, what? Like, couldn't believe it. Like, what are the odds that this guy is in the same hotel right next to the arena, and would even most artists, I'm going to, go by. Oh no, there's fans to knock on the door and come in.
Right.
So we were flabbergasted.
Right. And I think it's important to point out, right? You were not Eddie Trunk, the radio personality, the TV guy. You were Eddie Trunk, the KISS fan at a KISS show.
Super fan.
He had no idea who Eddie Trunk would become. No. This is who Eric Carr was.
This was exactly right. And this would have been 83. Which was the year I started in radio. So I was just starting to become, as you said, Eddie Trunk that people know. But I was at that point, no way, in any way, shape. I mean, I was literally a kid just starting out in radio locally in New Jersey. So he just came in, and we were like, couldn't believe it. And we said, "Hey, you want a beer?" And he said, "Yeah." He had a beer with us, and we talked for a little bit. And it was me and I think 3 friends. And he goes, "Oh yeah, I got to go to the show. I'll see you guys at the show. Have a good one." And we took a photo. We did. There is a photo. I believe it's in my first book, and of Eric in our hotel room with, I think we had Michelob beers, his hair out to here, and we were just. He walked out, and we're like, we can't believe that actually just happened, and it did. And that was the first time I ever met the guy. Of course, we ended up becoming great friends, but it wasn't then. It would be a few years later.
Right. So talk about that. Obviously, as you progressed in your career and in the industry, you got to know Eric more and more. So talk about how you became friends with him and what that friendship was like. Yeah.
Well, what happened from there was that I then, for lack of a better explanation, sort of became Eddie Trunk, the known person. Right. And I started working for a record company, and the first artist I signed is Ace Frehley.
Mm-hmm.
And Eric loved Ace.
Yep.
So through Ace, I re-met Eric.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe I told him the story about you're not going to, and he's like, really? And I was like, yeah. And at this point, I'm not only a radio guy, but I'm Ace's A&R guy. And, Ace always talked to me about how much he loved Eric. And then when Peter left, how much, he kind of took him under his wing. And
mm-hmm.
so he knew that I was close with Ace at that point already and was working with Ace. And we just, Eric would want to know what was going on with Ace and keep tabs on Ace. And when we were auditioning drummers, he would come down. He'd want to play with Ace. Mm-hmm. He actually wanted to do a tour with Ace,
mm-hmm.
But KISS wouldn't let him, doing a club tour. So it was like kind of through Ace. And then, Eric knew that I was then fully in the business. So he was like looking for a sort of confidant and somebody that he felt was going to be able to give him the straight story on what's going on. Someone he could honestly vent to a little bit
mm-hmm.
about some of the challenges he was having in the
mm-hmm.
band or what
mm-hmm.
have you. And I sort of became that guy for him.
Sure.
And we built a friendship on that. And also the fact that, and this may sound kind of crazy, Mike, but with KISS, once the lineup changes happened, everyone always, and it's obviously still like that today, Gene and Paul.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. And I get that. Obviously, the founding members of the band.
Mm-hmm.
But I always, because Eric was such an easygoing guy and such a fun guy,
mm-hmm.
I always wanted to have Eric on.
Sure.
So when we had gotten to know each other well enough that we exchanged phone numbers and everything, I would have him on my radio show all the time. And
mm-hmm.
he would, my radio station, the studio at that time was in Dover, New Jersey. The station was WDHA.
Yep.
And Eric was just kind of like, really loved the fact that I would let him come on and it would be like, he'd get his moment,
mm-hmm.
like it was one-on-one. He wasn't fighting Gene and Paul for attention. He didn't have
mm-hmm.
to look over his shoulder to wonder if he was saying the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
He could just come on and be himself and have fun.
Sure.
And he really loved that. And he didn't. And because I was local and he was local, it was an outlet for him.
Sure.
So he would come. He would drive out to the studio, and must have done it 3 or 4 times easily. Mm-hmm. And he'd sit in and do my show with me.
Right.
And one time, I'll never forget, one time he did it because I'm half Italian. My mom is Italian.
Mm-hmm.
Eric is Italian. And I was living at home maybe the first time he did this.
Mm-hmm.
So he drove to my house where I was living, my parents' house. And then we went to the station together. And my mom cooked dinner for him.
Oh, wow.
And my mom's a great cook and Italian. Mm-hmm. So it just was like, I remember I think she made some homemade pizza and some other Italian stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And he was just like, we just hit it right off. So he was just a great dude, like, to hang with. And remember Gary Corbett, who was KISS's offstage keyboard
mm-hmm.
player at the time. Yeah. Gary and Eric were very close.
Okay.
And Gary came out one time with him. One other time he brought someone else with him, a friend. And we would do the show. We'd always have, anytime he'd come, we'd have a big crowd outside the studio because the studio was like a house on a highway.
Okay, yeah.
But people would hear the show and hear that he was on,
mm-hmm.
and we'd walk out, and the parking lot would have, any many cars could fit in it.
Mm-hmm.
People parked on the lawn and everything because
mm-hmm.
they'd want a picture or something when we came out. And he'd sit and sign every picture. So we'd do at least another hour on the lawn in front of the station.
Eddie shared with me a great story about how whenever he would have Eric on his radio show, Eric would always go out into the parking lot, hang out with the fans, take pictures, sign autographs, etc. All the great stories that we've always heard about how fan-friendly Eric Carr really was. So, Mike, why don't you just explain to us, how did you actually get to meet Eric Carr again? And, what was those meetings like after the first time you met him at Sam Goody? What were those meetings like?
I'll tell you how my whole meeting KISS and hanging out with them, so to speak, whatever, how it really all started.
Okay.
It started with my being a Beatles fan. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So what had happened is in the spring of '85.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
A childhood friend and I went to a Sotheby's auction in Manhattan.
Mm-hmm.
They were auctioning off John Lennon's psychedelic Rolls Royce.
Wow. Okay.
Right. So again, my friend and I, this is another friend. We went, a big Beatles fan. We went into Manhattan again on the train, right? Because I wanted to be close to something that a Beatle had owned, driven, you know?
Right, of course.
So we went there that day, and I had my Beatles shirt on and my long hair, and we're standing there, and I'm checking out the car, and all of a sudden I see Mitch Weissman.
Right, Beatlemania, right, exactly.
From Beatlemania.
Right, exactly.
Outside.
That's awesome.
This guy wrote for KISS.
Right.
He was on KISS albums.
Yep, absolutely.
He wrote on Animalize.
Yep.
Right?
Yep, absolutely.
I said, I want to meet this guy.
Right.
So I went to him. I introduced myself.
Sure.
So he goes, oh, so you're a big KISS fan? Because I had told him.
Uh-huh.
I said, yeah, I love KISS. You know, after the Beatles, KISS are my second favorite band. He goes, that's funny because the guys are at Electric Ladyland this whole month recording their new album, Asylum, which, you know, I helped them out. I said, really? He goes, yeah. I said, okay, thanks.
Right.
I taught school every day.
Oh, wow.
All May.
Uh-huh.
And every day I went to Electric Lady with stacks of albums in my hand. And I met the guys every day, one at a time, coming in at like 11 o'clock in the morning. Eric would be the first guy, Eric or Bruce, you know. Eric would come out of his silver Porsche.
Oh, wow.
Bruce would come out of a Dodge Dart.
Okay.
He would get out of a taxi, you know,
out
of a Porsche, and they'd park down the block, you know, and they'd come in. And that's how my relationship or my friendship started with them, being this fan, getting autographs, taking pictures with them, you know, never overstepping my boundaries.
Right.
Talking to them, you know. And that's really where it started in the spring of 85, I believe. Yeah, spring of 85 of the recording with Asylum.
So let me just pause you there for a moment. So to me, as I'm hearing this story and being a New Yorker myself, I'm like, damn, I should have done that too. But, you know.
But did you know that they were there?
No, because I didn't run into Mitch Weissman.
Listen, if I hadn't met Mitch Weissman.
Right, you wouldn't have known.
I wouldn't have known.
Right, of course. Right, that makes sense. No, I had no idea that they were there at the time. But to me, you're standing out there. Now, it would have been very easy for Eric, Bruce, or any of the guys to just wave hello, walk past, and go in.
Paul did that a number of times.
Paul did that, and I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. Exactly. That's just Paul's demeanor. That's who he is. For better or worse, that's who he is, right? But it sounds like Eric would stop out there and hang out always. So do you remember any of the conversations or anything that you talked about with him?
Well, Eric was very friendly, very approachable, okay? Very accessible, you know? Would always stop, was never in a rush. I got to go, blah, blah, blah. Always there. Sign whatever you give him, speak to you. And, you know, Eric being Italian, me being Italian, him living or having grown up very close to where I live, you know, Sutter Avenue. He had cousins that lived on Sutter Avenue. So we always spoke about that, you know? Me being a drummer, him being a Beatles fan, you know, so there was lots to talk about. And he was always very, very friendly like that. Very funny. You know? Love the fans.
Right, and that's what everybody says. And like I said before, it's my biggest regret having never met him. Now, were you able to take pictures at all during those times with him?
I did over the years. I didn't take a photo with him at Electric Lady.
Okay.
But in the year or two, heavily in 89 and 90, took a lot of photos with him.
So how did you connect with them again in 89, 90, right? I'm assuming you're not standing outside the studio for 4 years waiting for him to show up again.
No. After Asylum came out, right, then I hooked up with some other people, other huge KISS fans. And we made it our mission in life to find out where the band, because they were still a New York-based band.
Sure, absolutely.
You know? They didn't make that move to California yet, so they were always in the city doing something, whether it was a radio promo, recording studio, photo shoot, you name it, whatever. Even the airport. I used to meet them at JFK all the time, leaving or coming. You know? So I hooked up with other fans, and we always found out where they would be. You know, and then we would go. We'd find out their schedule, you know, when they were coming in and when they were leaving. And we'd base going to meet them around that, you know.
Right.
We meet them coming in, take photos, get autographs, go eat,
right,
and then come back
and
and wait for them to finish and come out.
Nice. Right. So now talk about then. So how did you get connected with them in the 89-90 time period?
Again, I was going to SIR Studios.
Yep.
They were rehearsing for
Hot in the Shade?
Crazy Nights.
Oh, Crazy
Nights.
Okay.
They were rehearsing for the 2 Rich shows.
Yep.
For Crazy Nights, and then they were rehearsing for Monsters of Rock.
Yep.
In England, because they actually left the next day for England after the Rich shows. So that's when my relationship really got solidified with the whole band, because I was there every single day, you know, and a lot of times it was just to say hi. Right. Not to bust their balls, you know. Like some days we take photos, some days we got autographs, some days we didn't do either. Right. You know. So yeah, SIR 87, and then into 89, Paul rehearsing for his solo tour, and then in the fall rehearsing for the summer Hot in the Shade tour. Yep. That was the hot spot. That was ground zero for all things KISS. That period. Right. You know? And yeah, I mean, Eric, same thing like at Electric Ladyland, would always stop, say, hey, you guys doing, you know, what's going on, blah, blah, blah. We just have for lunch, you know, stuff like that. Really, and as a matter of fact, one of my photos here that I'll show you, I took outside of SIR. Yes. And this photo here of Eric and I, can you see it?
Yes, I can. Yes.
See, I'm holding in my hand a drumstick.
Yep, I see that.
And these are the Eric Carr used drumsticks that he gave me from that rehearsal.
That is
in SIR.
Awesome. Oh, wow.
Still has the tape on them, you know.
Right. Wow.
So it was really good at SIR. You know, I remember when the same week that Trouble Walking came out with Hide Your Heart, I think Hot in the Shade had just come out around the same time. Yep. Hide Your Heart, you know?
Right, like a week apart, I think.
Paul coming over to my car and leaning in and you know, listening as we were listening to the Ace version, because you hadn't heard it before, you know? Okay. Yeah. That's and Eric really always took the time to speak with us, you know, on a person level. Right. Not he's this big rock star, right? And you're a little fan. Wasn't like that. Right. It was always, you know, real. Right, and that's what everybody who's met him, that's what they say, is that Eric was always very real. You know, I always say that he was my musical idol in the 80s because to me, he just seemed like one of us, right? Eric just seems like he was the guy that was lucky that went to an audition and got in one of the biggest bands in the world. But at the end of the day, he was just an everyday guy, just like anybody else. Absolutely. Yeah. Here's another photo outside of SIR. You see his sweatpants. He's all sweaty. Yep. They were just rehearsing. Yep, absolutely. I tell you, really, it was a great period in my life. I had just started my job, and I'd leave and I'd go into the city. Okay. And just, you know, to be with your favorite band every single day. Sure. And establishing a relationship, a friendship, a trust, you know. Yep. That, and then, you know, going back to when they were rehearsing for Crazy Nights. So we saw the 2 shows at the Ritz. Yep. Okay. You know, listen to it on the radio, you know, on WNW, the broadcast. Yep. I was at that one. You were, right? The first one, the one that was on the radio. The first one was crazy. It was like 110 degrees. Hottest I've ever been in my life. Yeah, it was. And then the next night they brought in these huge fans. Oh, did they? Okay. Yeah, because it was just so bad. So anyway, the next night, another friend of mine and I went to JFK. Okay. We figured out, because this was back in the day when you could make a phone call and pretend I'm calling to confirm a flight for someone, you know? Right. It wasn't like it is today.
Not like today, right? Of
And
course.
they'd say, oh, yeah, they're on such and such a flight to London Heathrow and such an airline.
Right.
So we went there, and we got there an hour early. Got there.
Uh-huh.
Gene would always say, how did you know we were here? No matter where we would show up.
Right, of course. Right.
Fans, you know.
Right, of
we were
course.
resourceful. We would find out, you know.
Right, absolutely.
And then also the morning of the You Make Me Rock Hard video filming, February of '89, Paul had just played a solo show at the Chance in Poughkeepsie.
Yep, okay.
So we figured out the next morning where they were filming it in Queens.
Oh, wow, okay.
And, you know, sure enough, we got there like at 6 o'clock in the morning, you know, to wait. And Eric came with his Porsche, right? And this was taken that morning, like 7 o'clock in the morning.
So cool.
Very, very friendly, you know?
Right.
Didn't care that it was early in the morning.
Uh-huh.
You know, bullshitted with us.
Right.
And he said, yeah, I'll come out later. I'll see you, you know, during our break or something. Really, really cool.
I love hearing these stories because it's everything everybody says about Eric to me just keeps getting solidified as true, accurate. It's really who he was. You would be out there, and like you said, he would just treat you like you're one of the guys. And to me, it's so great to hear those type of stories.
No one's lying to you, Mike.
No, I know.
Telling you he was like that.
He's the real deal.
He was like that.
That is awesome.
Absolutely.
Now, as a drummer, right? You're a drummer. You play in a great Beatles tribute band, right? I've seen some of your videos online. Were there any songs that Eric played that you're like, hey, I really love his drumming on this particular song, this particular album? Any favorites you have?
Right off the top of my head, I'd say like "Who Wants to Be Lonely" is a great drum, drum song. Just not so much a particular song, but the way he played. Eric was a left-handed drummer.
Yep.
Played right-handed.
Played right-handed. Yep.
A lot of fans don't know that.
Yep.
Just like Ringo. Ringo was a left-handed drummer who was taught to play right-handed.
Sure.
That was kind of special. That was kind of cool. But he played the drums really hard.
But there are things about Eric's drumming that I think go unnoticed.
Like?
And one of the things is his, and I'm going to come from a technical standpoint. I think that's kind of why you have me on.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I'm curious.
He when he's playing his hi-hat, he does these accents that I clearly hear on the record that makes it's very tasteful, and it's hard for me to demonstrate or to explain without having a drum set in front of me. I'm sorry, I don't have that here. But there's something where if you're a drummer and you're playing and you're doing kind of like there's some drummers who play a hi-hat and they've got this kind of pumping action with it, and then you see some drummers who are playing like this. There are schools of thought as what's actually the right way to play. But what affords you in the sound when you're playing like this, it's like a pumping action, and when you're hitting down like this and then pulling out, you're having an accent, and the release is kind of like a lighter touch.
Okay.
So if you're going like this, you're getting a kind of, and you're also creating a groove in the sense. There's a lot of what Eric did in the sense of his. I know people always listen to the kick drum, listen to the snare, listen to the hi hat.
Right.
Listen to what's going on in the hi hat.
Now, let me pause you for this because I'm not a drummer, right? But I know you are. Yeah. But as you're saying
I
this,
just lost
no. So you're not losing me because as you're talking about this, I'm thinking, what songs could I trying to put through my brain what you're saying, and the song that comes to mind is "Saint and Sinner." Like I always remember the hi hat in that song; it just sticks out for me. I don't know if I'm off base on what you're saying, but that's a song like to your point that I always remember, like the hi hat sounding cool, interesting, different.
Yeah. So what he's doing now he may have played that two different ways, and it's got that. Now he may be doing a double hand like, and then opening with the foot, or he might be going, and so like it's kind of if you have fast hands. Now I don't know. There's no documentation of Eric ever. They never played the song live, as far as I know.
No,
right?
They didn't. Right.
But yeah, that's a great example of a tune where, again, with accents and releasing and opening the hi hat. The hi hat is it's what's the not underrated,
underappreciated
part of the drum set. It's just a wonderful feel that he had.
Right.
And what's interesting, I believe Eric Carr's sister in the book, Loretta, said that Eric's favorite song, or maybe Kiss song, is actually the song Saint and Sinner, which I wouldn't have thought that, but that's also a great song too.
But I even noticed it on records like on Crazy Nights, like Turn on the Night.
Yes.
You know, it's a straight groove. And you hear that little, go back and listen to it. You'll hear like these little accents on the hi-hat.
Right. Well, it's funny that you bring up Turn on the Night, because to me, that's one of my favorite Eric Carr drumming songs. Again, not being a drummer, but there's a cymbal crash in that song twice that just always sounded like it didn't belong where it was, but I always loved it. And it's,
I know where, let me guess where it is.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Is it in the verse?
Yes.
Everybody wants to
Yes, I love that.
Yeah.
It's like,
see how I know? Like,
I've never heard a cymbal crash like that, like in the middle of a line of a verse before, but it adds such a flavor to the song. So like little things like that he did that I just absolutely. And look, the second I brought it up, you're like, wait, I know it. Is it a cymbal? I know where it is. Is it in a verse? So.
And one of the things that I picked up that I didn't really hear other drummers doing at the time, and especially when I watched Animal Live Uncensored, and I was going to get to that, is a use of riding a tom.
Okay.
You know, he would ride a floor tom or rack tom like it was a ride cymbal.
Right. Okay.
And he did that a lot, and even like his drum playing on Tears Are Falling, boom, 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 and he's doing this like. And he's kind of riding the floor tom, and he's going from the hi-hat. You know, he's not just doing bam, 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 bam. You know, he's a boom, boom. Right. It's such a cool, different pattern. You know, I remember being at the time thinking like, I'm sure there's another drummer who's done this, but in this world that I'm living in of rock, heavy metal, this was kind of a cool thing that Eric brought to the table. Right. Heaven's on Fire. You know, you got that straight rock, and you know, I got a feeling back in my heart. Then the chorus, boom, ba, boom, da, boom, ba, boom. Like totally original. Right. I mean, just clever. I mean, he could have played that on the ride cymbal, but Eric didn't do that. He was like, Paul sings a line. He's kind of, it's like a call and answer type of thing. Yeah. It's very tribal sounding. He had like this really tribal feel, and he did that a lot in tunes, and that was something to me at the time was very original to me, you know, and very thoughtful. Right.
No, to me, I think those are all great points, and I think that's part of what's lost with people with Eric Carr. I know sometimes people, I'll say, knock the fact that in concert he was playing very fast. I think from everything I've read, that's a Gene Simmons thing. Gene was like, we got to play faster, and that really started during the Lick It Up tour. If you go back and listen to tapes from the Creatures of the Night tour, and especially the Unmasked tour, the tempos of the songs were not fast the way they were in the 80s. I don't think that's an Eric Carr thing. I think that's a product of the times, and Gene Simmons saying we got to sound relevant and play these songs, you know, full speed.
Let's clear this for once and for all.
Go ahead.
And this is without fact and without knowledge.
There you go.
This is just knowing the people. Do you honestly think Gene and Paul would allow concert after concert? Eric, you're playing that too fast. Okay. Right. Eric, you're playing that too fast. Okay. You think they would have allowed that?
Of course not.
Come on. You know, so you're right.
No, I'm 100% sure that he was instructed to play fast. That was, I guess that was just part of the times at that point. Bruce talks about that in the books, in the in both the books. I believe he mentions that. I think he describes it as it was like off to the races with the
absolutely
tempo. Pretty much, just everything was so fast. But again, it wasn't just Kiss. It was, I think, that was like a sign of the times at that point, especially when you had bands like Metallica and Megadeth. Coming out, where it's like suddenly now thrash metal is even faster than that.
A lot of fans point to, of course, the song "Creatures of the Night," that whole intro, "King of the Mountain," the intro of that, right? So, you know, to me, that was another thing. Is like Eric could do like those cool things like you just mentioned in "Heaven's on Fire," "Tears Are Falling," etc. But then he could also do that double bass stuff that was like very trendy in the 80s as well.
Yeah. Well, again, unsung track. One of my favorite Eric Carr drum performances is on the song "Danger." What he plays on that, it's a shuffle groove for those drummers out there. When he's playing, and it's kind of has a little bit of what Detroit Rock City is.
Right. That's true. I never thought of it.
It's a shuffle feel.
Okay.
But again, you know, he could take a song like "Reason to Live" on a ballad, and it's where the drums are sitting, the feel that it creates. You know, Eric didn't have the most complicated drum fills. But what's that song? "Get All You Can Take." You know, again, I could go into what he's playing 8ths, the 16th, the 32nd notes, whatever. Right. But it's just a cool lick, you know? You know, people always talk about guitar licks and drum licks. Let's give drummers some credit here.
Right, absolutely.
That starts off the songs. I think about songs that just start off with drums, you know? Great drum. Maybe people say, well, it's not one of the greatest KISS songs. But
that's fine.
Listen,
no, but you're right.
Listen to, if that's not one of your favorite KISS songs, listen for to it for the drums.
Absolutely.
You got a totally different appreciation of the song, I think.
Absolutely. So. So you mentioned before about Eric being a songwriter, right? And playing other instruments. And I think a lot of people do know that he actually even plays bass on "I Still Love You," which to me, I love that bass line also. So, we're talking about all the drum, and he does rightly so. But that's just a great, like, in the pocket bass line that adds to that whole song. And Gene said he couldn't get the feel, and Eric came in and really aced it.
Yeah. Oh, I see what you did there.
You like that? Yeah.
Well, I tell people that, I know that I play drums. I've been playing a lot more bass lately. And people say, how do you adapt to this rather quickly? And I say, you have the advantage when you're a instrumental. I can't say the word. Say it for me.
When you play multiple instruments. Thank
you. You kind of know where things feel because it's in your hands. If it's inherently in your hands when you're playing drums, you're going from this motion to this motion. It's still rhythm,
right.
So drummers, I think, are one of the most underrated musicians. Because, you're playing music. First of all, you are.
Right.
It's, you're not playing notes. Yes, there are drum notations. There is drum notation.
Okay. So
you have the advantage of, I think, when you're a drummer and you play guitar, bass, and these other rhythm players. I see outstanding guitar players who are technically great, but they don't play in time. Put a metronome on, and they're all out of time.
Right.
So I think Eric, reason why he got the feel so good, boo doo dum, boom, all those little in between those drum fills. Yeah, sorry, bass, riffs. It's kind of like he's thinking that blam, boom, boom. It's basically a lot of those things. He's just copied what he did on the drums.
Right.
So he's got that sense of songwriting from the drum standpoint, and now he's just putting the bass to kind of follow it.
Right.
So it's a great thing to bring up about Eric.
Right. While we're on that song, to me, the outro part of that song and the drums on the outro part are just, phenomenal. Yeah. Holy crap, phenomenal.
Yeah, you would think what he did would get in the way. I still love you. Again, when I heard that, that's a ballad.
Right.
I was like, I never heard a ballad with drums like, and these monstrous, and God bless them. They didn't say, Eric, it's a little too much there. Michael James said, you're going, let's just, just keep it simple. Like, he let it build.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable because you hear Paul, giving all his emotion in there. And the drums are kind of translating that also.
Yes, agreed.
Very dramatic.
Yes.
If he was just, laying back there, it's really giving, Paul's saying, I really, really love you.
Right. That whole last note, right. That last note, Paul's, I love, and then Eric's, that's just a freaking amazing, absolutely amazing.
Not too many people think of the song "I Still Love You" as having great drums in it because it's really just a ballad. But when he comes in at the end, it's now that's the thing is that KISS was so focused and so inspired with that Creatures album that they could pull off doing a ballad, and it's not even a power ballad. It's almost like a heavy metal ballad, that it starts off very, kind of mellow, but then there's elements where it's maybe the heaviest song on the whole album. So, Yeah.
Now, also in your book, you chatted with a bunch of different drummers. Trying to do it off the top of my head, I know AJ Pero,
Yes.
Charlie Benante, Bobby Rock, I think, is in the book, and probably 4 or 5 others, Marky Ramone, right? So
Mike Portnoy too.
Mike, yeah, exactly, Mike
Yes.
Portnoy. So, like I said, I leave a couple. We're probably still forgetting a few, right? Because you had
Right.
quite a number. But
Yeah.
what did the drummers that you spoke to have to say about Eric and the way he played drums and the impact they had on their career?
I mean, something that's pretty complimentary is from Charlie Benante from the band Anthrax. He's been pretty public saying that, he absolutely loved KISS in the 70s. That was one of his favorite bands. He was still, like, he went to the show in 1980 at the Palladium. Mm-hmm. He kept buying the albums, but then he said that he went to see the Lick It Up tour at Radio City, and that was it for him. He just said, I'm just not interested anymore, and just totally bowed out. Mm-hmm. But that said, he has nothing but overwhelmingly positive things to say about Eric Carr as not only a person, but also a drummer. We've talked many times over the years. He praises Creatures of the Night, the drum sound on that. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. In fact, I'll give you a little tidbit, or a little exclusive. I'm putting out a book in August about John Bonham.
Nice.
Yes, and I interviewed several drummers, including Charlie Benante, and I asked him, which drummer reminded you of John Bonham? And he said Eric Carr, and he talks about Creatures of the Night being a John Bonham-esque drum sound. So, I mean, that's about as high praise as you could possibly get.
As a fan, I know every year when a new album was coming out, and it was usually every September of every year, a new album was coming out, right? So it was like, hey, back to school and a new KISS album all at once for me, right? So, but every year it was like, all right, maybe Eric's going to have a song on this one. Asylum comes out, no. Crazy Nights, no. Finally, Hot in the Shade, he gets a song, Little Caesar, and I know I was so excited.
One of the best songs on the album, I think, personally.
Right, so I was going to ask you, so you really like that song, it sounds like?
Yeah, that song, and also there's a song that was demoed but never recorded by KISS that he wrote called, I believe, Eyes of Love.
Yes, an amazing song.
And I mean, that song is better than any song on like some of the 80s KISS albums. So again, that's just a missed opportunity. I think Gene and Paul should have... they should have at least given him 1 or 2 songs in an album and have him sing a song. I don't know why especially like I talk about in my books, especially the Take It Off book. The majority of the 80s KISS albums from, say, like Animalize onwards, there's definitely some standout tracks, but then it gets padded with more and more filler material. So they absolutely could have leaned a little more on Bruce and Eric to, bring more grade A material in. I think it would have made the album stronger.
Yeah, and you just mentioned Eyes of Love, which I think is an incredible song. It would have been maybe one of the top 5 or 10 songs of the decade if they put that on a KISS album.
I agree.
But even Somebody's Waiting is an amazing song.
Yeah, I agree.
Can You Feel It? I think Can You Feel It? I know it was written for the Rockheads, but that could have worked on a KISS album also. I think those are all incredible songs.
Right. I mean, something else that I don't think anyone's ever really discussed, and I didn't even think of discussing this in my KISS books, is, I mean, it would have made sense. I don't know if he asked Gene and Paul if Eric could have done a solo album while he was a member of KISS. If he just said, look, I have all this material, I just want to record. You know what would even been more interesting is if he said, I have all this material, I would like KISS to play on it, but I want to call the shots just on this album. That would have been interesting, too. I don't know if Gene and Paul would have gone along with that, but hey, I mean, possibly. You never know.
No, look, in the 78 time period, they all did solo albums.
Right.
And we know that they had the painter that did those paint up an Eric Carr portrait that matched the others. So had he approached them, well, they had the paint in. He had the material, especially in that 87 time period when they were waiting for Neverson.
Right.
Lost opportunity, maybe.
Yeah, who knows?
Right. Now, what do you think of Eric as a singer?
Oh, I thought he was great. I think, again, he's not going to be confused with, say, like Freddie Mercury.
Right,
but,
of course, right.
He was a great singer. I mean, the thing with KISS is that they all had, good singing voices. They always had people that could sing well.
Eric Carr had that raspy, great voice that complemented Paul and Gene real nicely. I never considered Eric to be a vocalist.
Sure, yeah, I would agree.
But the vocals that he did do were great.
Agreed.
Young and Wasted.
Yep.
On the Animalize is incredible.
Absolutely agreed, 100%.
Yeah, and then Black Diamond was great stuff.
Absolutely. Now, what do you remember? Obviously, we know that he sang Beth, and we know he wasn't happy about it. Did he ever talk to you about that?
No, I mean, I don't remember him saying anything about that one way or the other. I do know for a long time he absolutely wanted to sing a lead vocal on a record.
Of course, absolutely.
That maybe not certainly not necessarily a KISS classic done by him, but he wanted to sing his own song and have a song on a record. And to that end, for him, Little Caesar was a huge moment. Right. He was intensely proud that he got a chance to do that. Yeah. So I know that was super important to him, and he played bass on it as well, and he wrote it, and he was really, really excited to have that on Hot in the Shade. But I don't remember him saying anything to me about how his whole thing about Beth. I mean, he was very objective about stuff. Like he knew I was a fan, but he wouldn't call me and say to me, "Oh, the record we just made is the greatest thing we ever made." He'd tell me, "I don't know if this is going to fly with the fans. And they want me doing this. I don't really want to do this." And he was really like, he would have those kind of conversations with me.
It probably would have been better to have him sing Black Diamond on that album.
Agreed. And that's agreed. I never even thought about that. That would have been an absolutely better choice to put on the album. They were still doing it live. So it would have made so much. You know what? I never thought about it. Now I'm like, damn, that's a missed opportunity. Absolutely. Now, you were at his first show. Were you at his last show at Madison Square Garden on the Hot in the Shade tour?
Sure. I would have had to be. Yeah. Okay. I mean, they played the Garden on Hot in the Shade?
Yeah, it was the final night of the tour. They played the Garden. It was like November of 19...
They played the Meadowlands too, though, right?
They played the Meadowlands and the Nassau Coliseum in June, the end of June, and then they played the Garden the beginning of November. I think it's like November 7th or 9th-ish, like in that time period.
Right. So absolutely, I would have been for sure.
Okay, yeah. So obviously at the time we didn't know what that would be his final show, right?
No, and I mean, I did know though that he was having a lot of problems with Paul on that tour. He told me that on more than one occasion. That entire tour, I don't even think they talked, from what I understand. So there was a lot of headbutting going on at that time, and he wasn't happy about the drum sound on that record. Yeah, and I knew that there were some cracks starting to show between him and the band. The honest truth of it, Mike, is I don't know if he hadn't died. I don't know if he would have stayed in the band.
Right.
Well, from one way or the other, either him leaving or them letting him go, because there was definitely issues towards the end unrelated to him getting sick.
Yes, I remember there were a few other people like Gary Corbett, who was the touring keyboardist for KISS. He was pretty outspoken and pretty candid and honest with what he remembered at that point. Also, the sadly now late Bob Kulick, who I interviewed for the book, he also had some pretty candid, honest things to say about what he witnessed. When I spoke with Gary Corbett for the book, he tells a story which is actually kind of sad, that after Eric had the surgery, I guess he hadn't played drums in a while, and he was doubting even his playing ability. So Gary said, "Look, you're still a great drummer, I'm sure. You just got to get on drums and just play." So Gary rented a rehearsal studio. And they went and they jammed like for the whole night, and he said that it put a smile on Eric's face and it made him happy again. So, I mean, you hear those types of things, very sad to hear. So it just seems like Paul and Eric just maybe weren't on the best of terms at that point. So I don't know what really transpired there, if it was business related or personal or what.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say that he was also a little bit of a worrier, and maybe I don't think I think he always was looking for more and wanting to do more and have a bigger voice and be more involved as the time went on. Didn't want to just be sort of like looked at as the hired gun guy. I think he knew how much the fans really loved him, and the fans would wind him up on that too. Of course, hey man, you got to sing more. You got to, how come, because again, the guy he replaced, Peter, sang a ton of songs and was so I think people were looking at him as being more of a full more of a full role, and he was hoping it would go to that too. So although I'm sure there was he was very grateful that he was the drummer in KISS. At the same token, he was hoping that as a musician, he could go on to become like fully more realized as what he wanted to contribute.
Absolutely. Now, do you remember the last time that you met him in person, when that was?
Oh, wow. I would have to say his last show was June of 90?
November of 90 at the Garden?
Sorry, November of 90.
Yep.
Probably, I would say, in maybe September.
Okay.
No. Like, this was taken in September in San Diego.
Okay, yep.
Mike, to be honest, I don't know the exact.
It becomes a blur, right?
I probably should know, but I don't know when the last time was that I met him, unfortunately. Because I saw, I think it was 16 Hot in the Shade shows.
Wow.
So I was going to a lot, September, October, and then, leading up to November. I didn't meet him at the Garden. Okay. The last show of the tour. Because I knew it was the last show of the tour, but nobody thought it was going to be his last show.
Of course, right.
I thought there'd be plenty of opportunities, but
absolutely.
So no, I don't remember the last time I met him, unfortunately.
No, that's understandable. You just hit the nail on the head. We didn't know at that time, right? I was at that Garden show in 1990, and I remember it very vividly, but nobody knew that night that was the last time we were going to see Eric Carr in concert, So
absolutely.
I think we both feel fortunate and lucky that we live in New York. We were able to go to that show.
Very blessed.
Yes, exactly. I feel very blessed, but, we didn't know then what we know now, that would be it for him. That would be the final time he played with KISS, Right. Do you remember where you were and how you found out when he passed away?
Yes, I do. I spoke to him, it was right around Thanksgiving. He died when? Right after, probably.
Right around, right after Thanksgiving. Yep.
Right around. So I spoke to him throughout his whole medical issues. And this speaks to me, what I said about him, probably, not long for the band one way or the other, because he would call me and ask me about bands looking for drummers. I'll never forget one time he called me and said, I heard Whitesnake is looking for a drummer. Can you kick the tires for me and find out? And I used to get so mad at him because at the time he was fighting his medical problems. And I would just be like, dude, just get healthy. There's no way you're not going to be in KISS. The fans would revolt. There's no way. And just worry about your health and everything will take care of itself. Just tell me if you hear anything about Whitesnake. And he knew, in his mind, and of course it turned out to be true, that Eric Singer was going to take his gig. He knew that Eric Singer was around. He knew that Paul had played with him. He saw the writing on the wall. He really did. And so that's why he was looking as like, I'm going to get better, but I want to find another gig when I do. And I would always argue with him about that, because I'd be like, just get better, and there's no way you're going to lose out on KISS. It just can't happen. And then he did an interview with me after he had open heart, because he had a big scar. And we talked about the surgery. I really have to find these tapes. And he had a big scar, and we talked about it. I remember it was the last interview we did with him, or I did with him on that when he came to my show. And he talked about what he went through. He was on the road to recovery. He was goofing about his scar. He's like, man, I'm going to look tough now when I play. And then that ended, and I think Gary Corbett was with him at that interview. And that would have been like, I don't know, say maybe October or something, late October. And he went back in the hospital, I believe, if I'm remembering that. I could be wrong on the timeline, but he went back in the hospital. He told, because he had some complications and they found a growth, or they found more stuff that they had to deal with. And I said to him, again, you got to remember, this was before the days of email and texting and cell phones even. So to talk, you had to connect on landlines and make sure you were home and whatever. So we weren't as in touch as much as we wanted to, because if he was in the hospital, I would have to find somebody to get the number in his room. And so I remember him telling me that he was going back in for some stuff. And then it was just before Thanksgiving, I believe. And he called me up and he said to me, guess what? I got great news. I said, what? He said, I just came out of all the work, the hospital, the workups, all the tests, everything that happened. He goes, and I'm good. I said, you're good? He said, yeah. He said, I'm great. He goes, I'm good. Clean bill of health. I'm going to be okay. I'm like, oh my God, thank goodness. This is the best news could have for the holidays. I go, dude, call your, because I think at that time he told me he didn't call anybody yet. He didn't call his parents or nobody. And I said, Eric, call your family. This is the best news. call me back after Thanksgiving. We'll hang, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
He was like, yeah, thanks, man, thanks. I just want to let you know I'm good. Tell the fans I'm good. It's like, okay. And a few days later, I got a call from Gary Corbett. And I remember Gary being really upset, and I answered the phone, and I said, what's up, Gary? And I remember Gary saying something to the effect of, like, we lost him. And I was like, what are you talking about? And he goes, Eric died the other day. I go, what? I said, he just called me days ago. He said he was recovering. He said they got everything. And he said something happened, whether it was a seizure or I don't know what the final thing that took him was, but a heart attack, an emblem, an aneurysm, whatever it was, as part of all his procedures, just burst or whatever ended up happening. I mean, others in his family would know the details of that more. But it was just, it struck me as really shocking, given the fact that he had just told me he was better and going to get better and was very optimistic about his future. And again, he said to me, keep your eyes open for gigs, man. And I'm like, would you stop?
Right. And this is literally like the week of his passing, it sounds like, that you had spoken to him.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
It was like very, very few days later that it seemed like he was gone. At least that's the timeline I remember.
I was renting a house here in Ozone Park, Queens, where I live, living, with my girlfriend at the time. And I remember we were just laying in bed listening to 1010 Wins News. And I remember, I think it was like 7 o'clock-ish, 8 o'clock at night, if I vaguely remember. And I remember ding, 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 1010 Win. The drummer for KISS, Eric Carr, has passed away.
Right.
And I mean, I have goosebumps now. Just
I get chills. I get like numb when I hear it still.
Yeah. And I was like so taken aback by that news. I looked at my girlfriend. We looked at each other because she was a big KISS fan also, and I thought it was fake.
Sure.
Like I didn't think it had really happened. You
sure,
know?
Of course.
I mean, at that point, at that stage of my life, I was a massive Queen fan again, and not as much a KISS fan at that point.
Yep.
So the death of Freddie Mercury really, really hit me hard because the thing is too, I remember hearing during the summer, it would have been the summer of 1991, that Eric Carr was ill. So that at least I had some sort of idea that he was ill. Whereas Freddie Mercury, they only confirmed it the night before he died that he even had AIDS, and then the next day he was dead. So there was no kind of preparing yourself or anything like that. It was just so quick. So, but I mean, I remember just being absolutely sad about Eric dying.
And I remember exactly where I was when I heard the news.
So do I.
I was driving to my now wife's house, and Z-Rock. I don't know if you remember that AM station that we had in New York. Okay, yes, it was an AM rock station, only for a couple of years. And they announced on there that Eric Carr had died. And I knew he was sick, but I didn't know he was going to pass away. And I remember just sitting in the car, not going to my wife's house or my girlfriend at the time, and just being stunned, oh my God, Eric Carr's dead.
Yeah, I too remember I was at work, and a coworker who I think she may have told me about it. It came up on the radio, and I was just sitting at my desk. And at first I'm like, what you just said, is that really true? It's like you don't believe it, but yeah, I just kind of just sat there for a while, just you feel like a part of your world has just been taken away. I mean, this guy still, was like a hero.
So do you have a favorite memory of being with Eric Carr at all?
Certainly outside of the radio stations, doing the interviews was fun. And he was just such a ball buster and goof around so much. So when we were done with the interviews and we'd hang out in the parking lot, those were always a lot of fun because that was like a party after the interview with the fans. That hit me introducing KISS on the Hot in the Shade tour at the Meadowlands in New Jersey, and him walking me the stage and feeding me shots of Chivas Regal and telling me not to be nervous and just making me more nervous.
Of course.
And then throwing drumsticks at my back through the curtain while I was on the mic in front of 15,000 people in my home state introducing my favorite band. So he would just, just a lot of ball busting stuff. Those are the things that come to mind really quickly.
Right. So do you have any other pictures that you took with Eric that you could share with us?
I do. I have a few I could share.
Awesome.
Here's one. This is from Z100.
Nice.
They did a radio
Yeah.
promo that day.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember what year that was?
That was 87.
87. Okay.
No,
nice.
that was 89.
89. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Nice.
This is in London, Ontario.
Okay.
After the show, here's an
Nice.
SIR shot with Bruce and Eric, in between Bruce and Eric.
Yep. Yep.
Are
Very
you
cool.
seeing them okay, the photos?
Yes. Yes, I can. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here's another one between Bruce and Eric.
Yep. So awesome.
Yeah, it's good. Oh, hey, this is in Tampa, right before the show.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's Hot in the Shade.
Right. Right. That looks like it. Yep.
Because he
Very
has
cool.
the bodysuit on.
Yep.
Yeah, SIR during the day before he went in,
Nice. Yep.
right? And another SIR shot.
Nice.
Yeah, and over here I got these a brand new pair of sticks that he gave me,
Mm-hmm.
white ones. They're still in the
And the wrapper.
the regal
Yeah.
regal tip. I don't know if you could see them or
Yes.
not.
Yeah. No, I can see him. Yep. I see the logo on him.
Those are near and then here I got this signed many years ago.
Very nice.
You see the signature?
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. Right across. Yeah.
Bro,
Nice.
wow.
Wow. Yep. Yep. Look at that.
Photo that Al Munson took. He was
Yep.
a big KISS fan photographer years ago.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So
I know you realize this. Most fans would die to have any one of those photos with Eric. You know, you must feel lucky. And then you look back at it now 30 years later. Do you realize how fortunate you are?
very, very blessed. I don't
Mhm.
take any of it for granted. You know, I've spoken to Eric's, family and
Mhm.
stuff about things. And I mean, I was thinking about this the other day. The world is how many billions of years old,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
And think I lived
Mhm.
in that small time frame
Sure.
when the Beatles and KISS and my
Mhm.
favorite bands were touring, and,
Yep.
and to be accessible to me as a fan, going to see these guys, to meet them and see them in concert, that
Mhm.
kept me grounded.
Sure.
I didn't get involved with jerk-offs who wanted
Mhm.
to take drugs
Mhm.
and cause trouble.
Mhm.
These were guys that had the same passion
Sure.
and interests that I had.
Right.
And Eric being down to earth and grounded and being a Brooklyn guy,
Mhm.
I passed his houses where he lived every day while
Sure.
I'm working, and
Mhm.
it always comes back to me. I'll always keep it with me,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because I didn't realize this until just recently, but in his time with KISS,
Mhm.
he was only living a half a mile from my house, and I
Wow.
didn't know.
You didn't know that. Wow, that's so crazy.
No, his sister brought it to my attention.
That's
So
crazy.
now I know, but all the time I was meeting him in Manhattan,
Right. Uh-huh.
he was leaving in his car. and
You guys are driving next to each other on the highway home and not knowing. That's crazy. That's,
Good stuff. Good stuff. I feel very blessed. Very
Right
blessed.
before Eric passed away, he was able to participate in the God Gave Rock and Roll to You video,
Yes.
which to me is cool. And that song always has a special place in my heart because I know it's Eric's, even though he's not playing drums on it, he's doing some of the harmony vocals. So,
Right.
in some of the conversations you had, do you remember any stories about him being at the video and what's going on in his mind at that time?
Yeah, I believe it was Bruce said that he was amazed at Eric Carr's strength at that point. 'Cause, he was like gaunt looking and he was ill, but he just was giving it his all, which just really shows the type of character that he had and also what type of person he was and how much how much that meant for him to be able to play in that video for the fans and everything. And it really shows just also how proud he was just to be a member of KISS. That he would do that because he definitely was a very great person.
Just an amazing sense of humor, a fun guy. People just immediately took to him, just a lovable guy. And that's the thing. I mean, any fan watching or listening to this can know what he was as a musician because you can hear the records. Maybe you were lucky enough to see the shows. Real strong singer.
Mm-hmm.
Better songwriter than he was given credit for, played bass on some songs.
Yeah.
So really an all-around musician, which people didn't really realize. But being lucky enough to have called him a friend and known him and really loved the guy, just a great person, just such a good, fun, loving, music-loving person. And that's what I miss the most about him.
Yeah, he just seems like he was a great guy. And also to Eric Carr's, to his credit, out of probably all the people I could think of that have ever replaced an original member of a band, I think he was probably the most accepted and also beloved. Absolutely. And it was just something about him, his personality, just his vibe that you could pick up that was, a really warm person. I think a lot of people kind of picked up on.
In general,
Yeah, no.
like I said, I feel blessed that I had the opportunity to meet him as much as I did. And I was as friendly as I was with him. And it's unfortunate. I feel bad for the big fans like yourself who loved him but never had the opportunity to meet him. But you can imagine, right? Speaking from people, that he was a really great guy, down to earth, funny, right? Always made time for the fans.
Yep.
But just, I would say, listen to the records, dig his playing, and when you're listening to him, know that he was the real deal.
Absolutely.
I never heard him say anything bad about anyone. Even in jest or under his breath. Don't get me wrong. He was human. It's like
Of course.
But he never showed that part of it to me as a fan.
Right. Right.
Because he knew that I looked up to him. I idolized him.
Right.
And I guess he didn't want to bring that side, and that's fine.
Again,
Right.
as we've always said, and you've been great at doing this, celebrate Eric's life.
Right.
Always. Go back, listen to all those records. Just listen to what he did.
Right.
And and even the songs that are not your favorites, that's what I always say. If whatever song is not your favorite on a particular record, just listen to what Eric did on it. I think you'll have a certain different appreciation for the song once you do that. He was a drummer's drummer, but also he was a songwriter's drummer.
Right. Right. Well
He
said.
was great at writing parts that moved the song.
Right.
And he just had a great feel. He had an unbelievable feel.
Right. Right.
And we lost him too soon, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, but we'll celebrate his memory. His 70th birthday coming up this week. We'll celebrate that, and we'll always have the albums.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
That's his legacy that he leaves behind.
Without a doubt.
And no one could ever touch that.
That's right. That's right. I'd like to take a moment and thank my guests on this episode, Eddie, Greg, Michael, and Vincent. I had a lot of fun with talking with you guys about Eric Carr. I know he meant a lot to you, and he meant a lot to me, and many others as well. While we were chatting, a few of you brought up the fact that Eric Carr was considered like a songwriter's drummer. I couldn't help but think back to an exclusive interview I did with Vinnie Vincent a couple of months ago. Now, Vinnie Vincent was very open about the fact he does not like working with drummers. And as many KISS fans, probably all KISS fans know, Vinnie appeared on the Creatures of the Night album, as well as the Lick It Up album. Why don't we just give a listen here to what Vinnie Vincent had to say it was like working with the great Eric Carr.
Eric was my little buddy. I loved him. Everybody loved Eric. What's not to love? He was he was a sunshine. He was a really friendly, outgoing, warm, very caring person. Always made you feel like you were important. Always made you feel like you were a friend. And he was a fantastic person.
Yep.
Totally fantastic. And he was a great drummer. And I hate drummers because they don't know how to play a drum beat. And Eric knew how to play a beat. He knew how to play a song. And he played guitar. He played bass.
Yep.
So he understood the writing aspect of a song. So when he played drums, he played drums like he was playing a song, and he knew the importance of how a song is constructed.
Yep.
But generally, and I say this generally, drummers do not understand that concept. The greatest drummer, the only drummer I would, I'm sure there's others I would work with, but the one only person that's on my list is Jason Bonham.
Understandable.
You know?
Yep, absolutely. As I was thinking about ways to wrap up this video, one thing that came to me over and over again is how much Eric meant to the fans and how much the fans meant to Eric. So I thought, what better way than from hearing from some of the fans themselves? I want to just take a moment, thank everybody for watching this video. Thank you, Eric Carr, for all the wonderful memories. And now let's hear from some of the fans. Thank you, everybody.
Hey, everybody. Brandon Fields here. Just wanted to wish a happy 70th birthday to the late, great Eric Carr. And I wanted to share with you guys my favorite KISS record that Eric played on. And the reason this is my favorite record that he played on is the first thing you hear on both sides of the album is Eric's drums. Great stuff. Happy birthday, Eric.
Hey, just want to say happy birthday, Eric Carr. 70th birthday, man. Wish you were here to celebrate it with us. This album, the sound you brought to it, so heavy, so important to making sure KISS stayed relevant. Just happy birthday, Eric. Miss you. And thank you for the sound, man. Thank you.
Happy 70th birthday to the Fox, Mr. Eric Carr himself. I can't believe you would have been 70 today. I wasn't even born yet when you passed away. I was a year away from being born, but that didn't stop me from growing up listening to KISS. Creatures of the Night is my favorite KISS album. You were my favorite drummer, and KISS is a big influence on me. So happy birthday, rest in peace. We definitely miss you, especially in 2020 when we need something as amazing as you in it. Thank you.
When Eric Carr joined KISS, he gave them a better sound and a much more aggressive attitude. I was lucky enough to see Eric on all 5 of his U.S. tours with KISS. Happy birthday on what would have been your 70th birthday. Rock on, Eric.
Hey, Mike Shoop here, coming to you live from the KISS-tastic Man Cave in southern Minnesota, from a little portion of my Eric Carr wall. Just wanted to take a moment and wish Eric happy 70th birthday. One of my favorite things I remember about Eric is my first KISS concert, May 25th, 1990 at Met Center in Bloomington, Minnesota. I can still feel his kick drums bouncing off my chest all night long. I'll say happy birthday, Eric. You are missed, you are loved. Thanks for all the great music. Rock on.
Hey everybody, this is Bob from Chardon, Ohio. Just wanted to share 3 great Eric Carr memories on what would be his 70th birthday here. Number 1, just the overall sound of the Creatures album. And, the greatest thing about that album, in my opinion, is the great, great drum sound and the drumming on that album. Secondly, when I got to see that tour live and just seeing Eric Carr on the Tank stage, and then finally Eric Carr put some new twists into his drum solo, electronic sounds and things, almost like a guitar that he was adding in with his drumsticks during his drum solo, and I just thought that was really innovative for the day. So I just wanted to share those 3 great Eric Carr memories for me as a lifelong KISS fan. Thank you.
Hey, just a quick shout out to Eric Carr's family and all fans of Eric Carr, wishing Eric a happy birthday, and KISS wouldn't have been KISS without you. Thank you.
Hello. Happy birthday, Eric. Thank you for your music. Thank you for everything. Hope you, wherever you are beating those drums very hard. Thank you for your legacy. We love you. Greetings from Ecuador. Cheers.
Hi, this is Corpus, wishing Eric Carr, the Fox, a very, very happy birthday. You may be gone, but you are not forgotten. I was very lucky to see you several times with and without makeup. Eric Carr, the Fox, happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Eric Carr. Love you and miss you.
Hello, I'm Tristan. I'm from Pickerington, Ohio. I am a KISS collector. I'm going to show you all the Eric Carr stuff. This is an Eric Carr bobblehead. These are Eric Carr drumsticks. Here's an Eric Carr pencil. Back here, so you can put the camera down here. This is an Eric Carr toy. It's from McFarlane. And here in my KISS room, this is an Eric Carr drummer that I got from the KISS Expo. I just want to say Eric Carr is a great drummer for KISS. I miss him, and I wish him a happy 70th birthday. Bye.
Happy birthday, Eric Carr. Thank you for making my KISS musical experience wonderful. I know you're enjoying playing for God in heaven. Thanks for the KISS times.
This is Flavio from La Serena, Chile, remembering Eric Carr in what would have been his 70th birthday. My favorite KISS drummer, a great musician, a great showman with a heart of gold. I still remember hearing the first note of I Love It Loud and being blown away. Happy birthday, Paul Carabello.
Happy birthday, Eric Carr. You were such an influential member of KISS. You inspired so many to pick up drumsticks, and just such a great part of music history. Wish you were here to celebrate.
Happy 70th birthday to the Fox. We miss you down here. Keep rocking up in heaven.
To me. And it all started with this videotape right here. And I must have watched this thing countless amounts of times. And this right here is what made me say, forget about wanting to become a baseball player. No, I wanted to become a drummer and a musician just like Eric Carr from watching him countless amounts of times on this tape. And I would thankfully get to see his final concert at Madison Square Garden on the Hot in the Shade tour on November 9th, 1990. When I played my lone KISS tribute show, the only makeup that I thought of to wear was the Fox makeup. And I'll just say thank you, Eric, for all your influence over the years. And lastly, thank you to Mike for scoring me these Eric Carr signature drumsticks over 20 years ago.
Hey, Eric Carr, happy 70th birthday. Wish you were still here, but I just wanted to say thank you for all the great drum tracks, especially on my favorite KISS albums, Lick It Up and Crazy Nights. Thank you, and I miss you, man.
Hello, KISS Army. I was introduced to KISS as an elementary student in 1976, yet it was the albums in the 80s that really got my attention. As a teenager, I drove 5 hours across Nebraska in a blizzard the day after Thanksgiving to see KISS in Omaha for the first time in support of Crazy Nights. And even though Gene, Paul, and Bruce were fantastic all over the stage, it was Eric Carr who made that show phenomenal. And then I saw him again on the Hot in the Shade tour, and again, Eric was on fire. He was the glue that KISS really needed at that time, and Eric made me a bigger KISS fan than ever before. He was gone way too soon. Happy birthday, Fox.
Happy birthday to the late, great Eric Carr, one of the best drummers of all time. Words cannot describe how much, I miss him, and my only regret is I wish I would have had the chance, to meet him and see him perform live. Rest in peace, Eric Carr.
I want to say thank you to all the fans who submitted videos. I'm quite sure the family and all of Eric's fans will appreciate seeing those. I also want to say an extra special thanks to my guests, Michael, Vincent, Greg, and Eddie Trunk. I really appreciated all of you taking your time out to chat with me about your memories of Eric Carr. For everybody watching this, I'll actually be releasing my uncut interviews with each one of them in the coming days and weeks ahead, as I have over 4 hours of conversations and many things that I left out of this episode, so you'll definitely want to take a look for those. I also want to extend an extra special thank you to Bruce Kulick and to Carrie Stevens. I really appreciated you guys both being a part of this project. And last, I just want to say thank you, Eric Carr, for all of the wonderful memories you've left all of us rock fans and KISS fans. We miss you. Hit that subscribe button below if you're watching on my YouTube channel. If you're listening to one of my podcasts, hit subscribe over there as well. Also, head on over to Facebook and follow my page, The Rock and Roll Experience with Mike Brunn, where each and every day we talk about all the rock and roll music that you love. That's it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. See you next time.